Welcome to In Case You Missed It. The ultimate battle, two mid-level detectives standing against a dangerous cartel, with senior officials entangled in the web, from their managers to the ballistic lab, the hawks, and even judges. These two investigators refused to back down. Their pursuit of justice came at a price. Their lives turned upside down, forced into safe houses, living every day under threat. Yet they insisted on giving their testimony publicly, not behind closed doors as once suggested by the Madlanga Commission. If this isn't bravery, then what is? Say what you want, but what General Mkhwanazi, General Khumalo, and the PKTT did by protecting these detectives didn't just save their lives. It may have saved many more from these ruthless criminals. These are the same people who stole from hospitals, leaving patients compromised. They eliminated those who exposed them, like Armand and Babita, and anyone who stood in their way, including rivals in the underworld such as the DJs that were unalived between 2022 and 2023. Their arrogance runs deep, fueled by protection from corrupt cops, politicians, and even judges. Yet, instead of focusing on this rot, some media houses like News 24 have turned their lenses on General Mkhwanazi. Glenys Breitenbach claims Mkhwanazi went public only because he's vying for Fanny Masemola's post as National Commissioner. But so what if he is? That doesn't erase the truth. SAPS, DPCI, and the Metro are rotten to the core. That should be the story, really. Mkhwanazi's unpopularity stems from the fact that he's implicated individuals from the DA, ANC, and Patriotic Alliance, along with friends of the EFF such as Sibiya. Most members of the ad hoc committee can see past that. Instead of addressing a threat to national safety, they discredit him, protecting their images in a political chess match. And can you imagine Julius Malema awaiting sentencing after being found guilty not so long ago, questioning General Mkhwanazi, not for a crime by the way, but for speaking out? Meanwhile, questions still hang over Khosela and her ties to Royal Battle's corruption. Now let's get into why everyone is up in arms. Well, everything erupted on the 17th of April 2024 when 5 Johannesburg detectives were called to a crime scene in Bramley, Johannesburg. Inside a Mercedes Viano were 3 men, Buletau, Mosakekana, and a third who was later cleared. The van contained used cartridges, firearms, burner cell phones, a spare wheel, and license plate. Later that same day, at a second scene near an engine garage in Vereeniging, Tiego Mabusela was found stuck in a silver Mercedes-Benz C200 with a damaged wheel. The plates were false. Investigators later discovered that the men in the Viano were heading to help Tiego. The spare tire in their vehicle matched his car. The genuine plate for the C200 was found in the Viano. Both scenes linked back to a third crime scene at Q-Tex's gate, where Armand had been gunned down that same morning. CCTV footage later showed both the Viano and C200 scouting the area days before the hit, clearly planning the assassination. Adding to the web, a Hyundai i20 parked at Musa's home contained yet more weapons. The C200, it turned out, was registered to Tiego's daughter, Ntabiseng Zama, a 23-year-old currently out on bail on another case involving alleged hit payments made to her bank account. Whether she's the same daughter who owns the C200 remains unclear, but one thing is certain: it takes a different kind of darkness to drag your own child into this world. Soon the detectives realized these were no ordinary suspects. The day they escorted the men to court, something chilling happened. Supporters of the accused began taking photographs of the detectives inside the courtroom. On their drive back, the detectives were allegedly followed and almost run off the road. Isn't it strange that witness A and B both described being forced off the road, especially considering that earlier this year, 3 other detectives working on a different case had their car plunged into the Henops River in Centurion under suspicious circumstances. Is it a coincidence? Perhaps. But in this world, anything is possible. According to witness A and B, the threats began not from the cartel itself, but from within the police ranks. Puletau was a detective at the time of his arrest, and his colleagues are said to have gone to Vereeniging to defend him, and they were trying to intimidate the investigators who were working on this case. Even when they were faced with clear evidence of his involvement, his friends at SAPS defended him, proving how deep the rot runs. Things escalated when these investigators started analyzing the cell phone data and vehicle tracker logs, and they uncovered 2 names, Katiso Molefe and Lucky Molefe, the alleged masterminds behind the hits. If you haven't already, do check out my other video titled Inside the Madlanga Commission, where I go into detail about Aman's unaliving and Katiso and Lucky's connections. Amongst these men, Katiso stands out as the most feared. He's allegedly the money man, the fixer who buys cops, judges in silence. Despite evidence piling up, his past drug conviction in the UK, and even being caught with a fake passport in his past, he still walked free on bail in the Aman Swartz case, and this bail was granted by Judge Lidwaba, who, according to whispers, received a brown envelope. It doesn't end there. Reports allege that Katiso had a brigadier sneaking into prison to bring him food and clothes after visiting hours, and during his second arrest this year in the DJ killings case, witness A and B claim his friends from the Hawks came to defend him, even arriving in a state helicopter, an act of intimidation aimed directly at the investigators. Remember, also Kenny Kunene was said to have been at the scene when he was arrested this year. Witness A and B also stated that the Gauteng Provincial Commissioner Sibiya personally called their line manager, demanding to know why Katiso was being held in a jail far from his home. Why would a provincial commissioner care about a single suspect's comfort? One has to wonder. The plot thickened when the ballistics lab claimed they found no positive matches between the weapons recovered from the Viano and the C200 and any known crimes. But when the PKTT intervened, the same weapons were sent to a KZN lab where results told a different story. The guns were positively linked not just to Aman's murder but also to Tebogo, Tobijane and the DJ killings cases. That's when it became clear the detectives hadn't uncovered a single case, they had stumbled upon an entire criminal syndicate. Hence, all this attention from senior cops at SAPS. Witness A began dropping names. Mkwanazi had already mentioned Katiso and Vusimatlala being members of the Big Five, but witness A went further, naming the late Jotan Mswazi, a feared Pretoria taxi boss who allegedly mentored Vusmuzi Matlala. Also mentioned was Ze Ngumalo, said to be connected to the group. Ze, you'll remember, is an employee of SA Taxi Holdings, a major financer in the taxi industry. So we can easily assume that he may have crossed paths with Mswazi because of his involvement or his work at SA Taxi Holdings. and at this stage there are no criminal charges against Zengumalo. Another name that surfaced was Vusi Ndlala, described as a mysterious brown mokhotsi type of person, a man who seemed to know things even investigators didn't. Ndlala allegedly knew beforehand that Katiso would get bail and even the exact amount of his bail. He tried to cozy up with the detectives, inviting them to parties at a boutique hotel called 12 on Hillel, which he claimed to own. Witness A and B allege these events were attended by top SAPS officers. Now let's talk about 12 on Hillel, the name that suddenly has everyone's blood pressure rising. From the outside, it's an upmarket spa and hotel, a haven for South Africa's elite. Do scroll through their Facebook or Instagram page and you'll see the who's who of Mzansi society smiling in the pictures there. But behind the luxury facade, questions are mounting. The mysterious Vusi Ndlala, said to have hosted police officers there, remains unidentified. However, there is a Thami Ndlala, husband of media personality Lerato Kganyago, the same Thami who once made headlines for alleged fraudulent dealings. When the hotel first opened, you'll remember that Lerato publicly promoted it, even claiming ownership. But now Mogel has changed her tune. She's denying any ties to the establishment. The hotel itself has issued a statement vehemently denying that Lerato was ever a director or involved in operations. Meanwhile, her husband has been threatening bloggers on social media, adding to the growing tension. According to public records, the registered directors of the hotel are Njabulo Ndlala and Fikile Ndlala. I'm not sure what the relation is to Thami Ndlala. The hotel has also denied knowing any Vusi Ndlala, instead claiming that they do have on their records a guest named Vusi Makubela, who is said to have hosted parties there, the parties that were mentioned during the Madlanga Commission hearings. So make of that what you will, but wherever you look, the lines between luxury, law enforcement, and organized crime seem to blur. Meanwhile, witnesses A and B were living through hell. They soon realized they weren't dealing with common criminals. This was a mission of power. Just 2 weeks ago, Katiso Molefe was granted another bail of 400,000 rands by the High Court, courtesy of Judge Brett Wanless. Once again, it does little to disprove the allegations of brown envelopes quietly changing hands behind courtroom doors. At the same time, Vusi Ndlala has taken his rejected bail application to appeal at the High Court. Whether he too will walk free remains to be seen. More names surfaced from witnesses A and B, each one tightening the web around the so-called cartel. One of the names is a Thapelo Molefe, who is said to be Katiso's son, who is said to be in hiding. Officially, he hasn't been implicated in his father's criminal dealings, at least not yet. But obviously one has to ask why you would want to disappear if you have nothing to hide. Rumor has it that Thapelo may have benefited financially from the Transnet-related scams that were allegedly orchestrated by Lucky Molefe, who worked at Transnet, and Lucky is Katiso Molefe's nephew. If that's true, then perhaps Transnet would be the right place for investigators to start digging. Another key name that was dropped was that of A. Lerato, who is said to be Bullet Tau's girlfriend. She's the one who allegedly gave Tau the name of the whistleblower at QTech, Armand. We now know, of course, that that was false information and that Armand was not the whistleblower. The whistleblower is still alive. So my question is, why hasn't this Lerato been arrested yet? Because she did play a pivotal role in revealing this whistleblower's identity. Recordings presented before the commission reveal even more. Katiso's girlfriend and Lucky's sister can be heard advising Lucky to stay away from Soweto, to avoid using his phones, and to remove a tracker from his car. They also allege that the uncles will protect him by providing him a safe house to hide out in. Witness A and B revealed something crucial. They kept the case docket with them at all times. They did not keep it at the police station like they did other dockets, but this particular docket they kept it with them at all times. They didn't trust anyone. Recordings that were played at the Madlanga Commission confirmed that the same brigadier who was allegedly delivering food and clothes for Katiso was desperately searching for the missing docket. When he confronted witness B, she told him she didn't have the docket. One can assume that Sibiya requested for the 121 dockets from KZN as a strategic move, a smokescreen to find the Armand docket without raising suspicion, because he was under the assumption that the PKTT were the ones handling this investigation, whereas it was the two investigators who were handling this, or who were leading this investigation. So by Sibiya asking for the 121 dockets, he couldn't single out the Armand docket. So he requested for all of the dockets that the PKTT was working on. But the plan failed. The PKTT weren't the lead investigators, and the Armand docket wasn't among the 121 dockets. And those files, mostly cold cases from KZN, ended up sitting untouched in Sibiya's office, a paper cover-up for a much deeper scheme, perhaps. The two detectives had played a perfect chess move. By keeping the docket close to themselves, they may have prevented it from disappearing forever. My heart does go out to witness A and B. These are real people who are trying to do good, and they have been removed from their homes, cut off from their families, and living in hiding while the men they helped bring down walk free on bail, still living comfortably in their Sandhurst mansions. It's clear that if General Mkhwanazi hadn't gone public, these investigators might have already been silenced and the Armand docket buried in oblivion. They are the underdogs, underestimated, unprotected, but unshakable. And in a country where truth often dies in the shadows, their bravery is a reminder that justice still has a heartbeat.